This is just an off-the-cuff video. Today I was reading, continuing to read The Naked Communist, and I came across a really interesting concept which I hadn't really heard of before. And he was talking about how communists are always trying to convince their enemies that when dealing with communism, there's only two options that you have available, and that's coexistence or nuclear annihilation. And so how this worked for the communists is they would say, look, you must tolerate the existence of the Soviet Union, Red China, and the Eastern Bloc, and Cuba, and North Korea, and so on. Because if you don't, it has to be nuclear war. That's the only thing that can happen if you oppose communism. A total annihilation of everything. And this is what, again, philosophers call this a false dichotomy, and it's a very common strategy for manipulation, that you say, look, you either do it this way or this will happen. And sadly, it's really common. Like, this happens in a lot of personal relationships. And while reading this chapter, I had a few thoughts, because it reminded me of some of my previous relationships. And one was where, like, I felt that I had to accept my partner, my romantic partner, my girlfriend, or she'd leave me. Like, there was no in between. I just had to accept her, and whatever she did or said, I just had to accept it. And if I didn't accept it, well, then she'd leave. And you might begin to see a problem there with that kind of thinking. And it's similar with the communists, because they want you to believe in coexistence. They want you to adopt coexistence as an ideal, as a value that to strive for in a relationship. But it's actually a surrender, because as soon as you start going, oh, let's coexist, exactly the way things are, you've actually already surrendered to communism. And I'll just explain the communism bit, and I'll get back to the relationships. So if you accept that we should coexist with communism, that means you accept that slavery in China, in Soviet Russia, in Eastern Europe, in North Korea, that's fine. They can have slavery there. In fact, they can steal from their people, they can exploit them, they can murder them, they can arrest them, they can harvest their organs, and they can go about invading and subverting other countries, because you're going to tolerate them, because that's the virtue that comes in coexistence, is tolerance of all these inhumane and disgusting behaviors of communists. And so you're already saying that, yeah, it's fine for them to conquer 2/3 of the world, enslave all those people, exploit them and murder them and oppress them and take away all their rights. Otherwise, everyone dies. And so the trick is to get you so fixated on everyone dying part that you go, well, it's not too bad that we allow half the world to be enslaved by communists. And, they're already halfway to victory now. Because how do you push back? Because if you push back, it's war. Everything's over. So you should just kind of sit back and let them gradually take over. Country by country, city by city, state by state, neighborhood by neighborhood, house by house. Just take it all over. Similarly, if in a relationship, like I was talking about, where I was like, well, I had to accept, I believed, it's entirely my belief, she wasn't putting this on me, but I had a mindset that, like, I had to accept her and all the things she did, otherwise she'll just leave. And so I'm caught between, like, okay, I don't like that thing that she did, but I don't want her to leave, so even though I don't like the thing that she did, I'm just going to pretend it wasn't a big deal. I'm not going to make a big fuss about it. I'm just going to ignore it because that's better off than the relationship ending. And one such thing that happened to me, this is many years ago. I was in a relationship with a woman. Funny enough, she was also a therapist. Scarily enough, she was also a therapist, and she told me how she was studying at the time, and that this 21-year-old guy in her class told her that he would like to have sex with her. He just went straight up to her, and I said, "Oh, good grief! That's really odd. Like, someone just go overtly, yeah, I want to have sex with you." And she said, like, yeah. I laughed and said, I said, well, why? What did you think? How did you respond? And she goes, well, I felt really flattered because, like, I'm 10 years older than him, and he wanted to sleep with me. I'm like, I felt really attractive, and I felt like really flattered that this guy wanted to be with me sexually. Now, I did not like her answer. I did not like my girlfriend's answer at all. I thought that was really disturbing, that she was flattered by a 21-year-old who just said, I just want to have sex with you. And I do remember feeling very unhappy about it at the time, but I decided not to say anything because I was thinking in this strange idea of coexistence, so to speak. I just have to tolerate these things that I don't like, and so I tolerated it. And to skip ahead, she ended up deciding that she wanted to actually take this guy up on his offer of having sex with her. Now, I in retrospect, she was nuts, but I was nuts too, because what the hell was I doing in a close relationship with this girl? I mean, I really liked her, but she was too dangerous for me. It's like, it's just not a safe person for me to get attached to. Well, as it turned out, I mean, in retrospect, you see these things perfectly clearly, but at the time, I felt like it was surprising, but, in the back of my mind, I actually kind of knew from that very first conversation when she brought up that guy saying he wanted to have sex with her, weeks earlier, probably a month earlier than she actually went ahead and did this, that it was going to happen. Because the way that she'd talked to me about it related to me, I could tell that she was really tempted by this offer. And like, looking back at it, I really regret being so tolerant. I don't think I should have been tolerant. I think I should have pushed right back at it. Now, feminists, of course, are another species of communist, and they'll tell you must accept everything a woman says, and they want to put you in that mindset of, like, you either accept her totally or she leaves. And ultimately in this situation, she would have, I ended the relationship when she was clearly unfaithful and nuts to say the least, because she was not acting in her best interest. She was clearly just acting in some kind of desperate desire for self-affirmation that she's not consciously acknowledged that she's lacking. But I think it would have been a lot better if I had pushed back. Now, if you believe in coexistence, what I'm about to say now is going to sound nuts. It's going to sound really aggressive, and that's the problem. That once you adopt coexistence as your ideal, anything that is further towards rejecting it sounds crazy. So the concept that they brought up in The Naked Communist is co-resistance. Now, co-resistance is not a great... Well, resistance isn't aggression. So aggression is kind of like, well, you didn't like what somebody said, so you smash them out. That's an overreaction. Co-resistance is saying that I'm not comfortable with what you said, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm okay with it. I'm going to push back on it, but I'm going to push back on it proportionately. I'm not going to escalate it, but I'm just going to say that I feel really uncomfortable hearing that you felt flattered by a 21-year-old who approached you in a very inappropriate way, because you are in a relationship. We've been dating, sleeping together for months. Like, that is a completely inappropriate thing for him to do. And it concerns me that I don't think you've got a lot of sound judgment, that you'd be tempted by this, because you're over 30. You really need to sort out your life, where you're going, what you want out of life, instead of pursuing these kind of sexual validation. And this is a problem that a lot of women have, is that women get their sexual power from men wanting to sleep with them. Like, men give women like houses, they give them cars, they give them an income, all that just because they want to sleep with them. So for a woman, it's really important that men want to sleep with her. And so when we say a woman's insecure, we say that she has doubts that men would be willing to hand over huge amounts of money and houses and cars and throw them at her just to sleep with her. Which is kind of a big deal, because that's the whole female survival strategy: get resources from a man through sexuality. And so if a woman's insecure, she thinks nobody wants to sleep with me. And often the strategy that a lot of women take to get over this fear, insecurity fear, is to see how many men they can sleep with. Because that reassures them, like, oh, someone wants to sleep with me, so I mustn't be worthless. I must be worth something to someone. Now, the problem is they tend to just sleep with really low-quality men, and if you're a woman and you sleep with low-quality men, you feel really disgusted about yourself. You're kind of like, how did I sleep with that hobo? And so I would have pointed out to her, like, oh, you're over 30, you're quite a talented, intelligent person, generally intelligent person, got this insecurity. Why are you tempted by a 21-year-old who's just interested in sex? Like, this is another thing. Like, sex is a very different thing for women than it's for men. For men, for women, sex is like a bonding for life with someone. For men, it can be bonding for life, but a lot of the time it's just like, oh, that was a bit of fun. Yeah, I got some relief there. That was cool, satisfying fun. And has nothing to do with any kind of deep feeling or commitment. And I knew that 21-year-old, as a male, I know he did not care about my girlfriend as much as I cared about her. And so therefore, it was I'd be pushing back, resisting what she wanted to do, and say, look, what you're doing is going to take me out of your life. Because I do not feel safe being attached or having feelings and loyalty and giving to you, knowing that you can be tempted by some other guy who clearly doesn't care about you and has no intention of investing in you as a person and in your life. So, and I really wish I'd said that. Now, I think, looking back at it, knowing her, knowing me, and even if I had said those things at the time, the relationship still would have ended. But I think that the relationship would have ended in a far less dramatic way than it actually did end up ending. Maybe I'll talk about that another time, but I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be. And that's the element of co-resistance. Now, co-resistance is really just having self-respect. Now, in the book Naked Communism, co-resistance was basically, look, if communists lie to you, lie back to them. If communists shoot down one of your planes, shoot down one of their planes. If communists steal your secrets, you steal theirs. If communists embarrass you, you embarrass them, and so on. It's just tit for tat. And it sounds appalling. It sounds aggressive. Like, oh, you're attacking someone. Oh, they're going to get upset. You're shooting down planes. But it's actually really practical because, yes, in the short term, it does cause more destruction and more tension. But what happens is that the other side go, oh shit, if we attack them, they're going to totally smack us back. And they learn to respect you. They learn to respect your boundaries and stop stealing your intellectual property. Stop trying to subvert your political system. Stop trying to enslave you. Stop trying to steal your freedom and your jobs. And they start treating you with respect. And the instant they do that, they stop kind of being communists. They start moving towards reforming themselves into being normal, moral, ethical human beings with integrity. But they can't do that if you do not set boundaries to them. And the whole tragedy of the Cold War is that the West never set firm boundaries. There was a time when the Soviet Union flew across the West German border and shut down a West German plane. The US kind of went, oh, yeah, well, we don't want to upset them, we don't want to provoke them. And so the communists were like, well, we'll move into Cuba. They escalated it. And when America finally goes, oh no, we're not going to put up with you being in Cuba, things almost got to nuclear war. Yet, if they just shut down a plane over Poland, just as retaliation, I don't think Cuba ever would have happened, because they would have been too scared. And, yeah, sure, it may not have solved that relationship that I had, but you never know. I might have actually gotten through to her. She might have gone, wow, I can't just keep playing these games, and I've got to do something about my insecurity, especially since I'm a therapist, training to be a therapist. I should actually address my own issues so that I can help other people with theirs, instead of, you know, coming to therapy with all these other emotional problems I haven't sorted out. And mind you, she had a lot. Mind you, I had a lot too. But, yeah. No, I just, the idea of co-resistance really struck me, because I'm like, well, yeah, you know, this works in politics, and, you know, it would work in personal relationships. In fact, I'd just call it healthy boundaries in relationships. If someone in a relationship lies to you, lie back to them. Just lie back to them. And nothing like huge. Don't like lie in a big way that might cause huge drama, like pretend you're pregnant or pretend you lost your job or something like that. But just let them know that, look, if you're not going to be honest, that means I don't need to be honest anymore. And then have a conversation about that. Because if that person is sane, they'll go, oh yeah, lying's really bad because I hate you lying to me, so I'm going to cut lying to you. And that way, you know, you can save your relationship. But if the other person goes, look, I can lie, but you can't lie, and that's where they're going to draw their boundaries, get out of that relationship. That person, you cannot have a relationship with a person who has double standards like that. They have to go. And I know I say that, but they'll have lots of rationalizations, and if they're clever, they'll come up with really, like, they'll sound like legitimate reasons for why they're allowed to lie and you're not allowed to lie. And it usually just comes down to, but I'm just so sad and I have a miserable life. Take pity on me. But even it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what their reasons, what their excuses are for doing it. You cannot have a functional relationship with someone who is fundamentally dishonest with you. And you can't have a relationship with someone who abuses you, pushes you around, and doesn't respect your boundaries. And yeah, I mean, think about co-resistance. Like, if you don't like something, doesn't mean you have to get angry or shouty about it. You just simply have to assert yourself and say, look, I'm not cool with that. I don't like that. I don't like what you're telling me, and this is why. Keep it civil. If they can escalate, let them escalate. But yeah, if they do escalate, I mean, say goodbye. Say goodbye. Just gone. Because you, at the end of the day, it's like you can't coexist with liars and thieves and murderers and communists. You just cheaters. You cannot coexist with them, and you don't need to. You don't need to tolerate any of it, and you can just walk away. And and don't try to be mindful. Don't get involved. Don't get attached to people who don't respect your boundaries like that. Anyway, they were just my thoughts for the day. I hope you liked the video. Until next time, Perspera ad Astra.